Welcome to the Leela Life Show. I'm your host, Linda Andrews, and you've tuned in to the right place to up-level in your life and business. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Leela Life Show. I'm your host, Linda Andrews, and I have a very special guest today, Kristen Bowen. She is founder of Living the Good Life Naturally, and she has some amazing products. But beyond that, her life experiences to get her to this exact moment. Welcome to the show, Kristen. Thank you so much for being here.
This is a take two for us. So
This
I'm
is.
really excited that it's connected, audio is good, and that we can move forward.
I agree. And I think with take twos, I find at least they're often better than the first take. So here we are. But I would love to have you share with our listeners a little bit about your story and how you got to this exact moment. We'll fill in some gaps and have some good dialogue along the way. But you are embodied with your transformation leading to your then leadership and the different ways creatively and through business that has expressed. And, as a female founder myself, I find these types of stories to be so powerful in and of themselves to inspire others, whatever challenges they've had to connect with and serve from that space. And again, like I said, you truly embody that. So let's connect some dots.
Oh, good. Let's do it.
So what started for you? I know health challenges to lead you to start the company, but could you shed some light about what was going on for you?
So I had just had baby number 4 biologically, which was baby number 6 in our family. Some of my children are born through my heart, some are born through my body. And I was having a hard time with my bladder leaking. So I was incontinent and called my sisters and said, "Hey, what is going on?" And they're like, "Oh, you need to go back into your OBGYN. Sounds like your bladder has fallen after that 4th baby." Very common. So I did. They were right. And he said, "Let's get you scheduled for surgery." Absolutely. I was excited to get back to exercising. I'm someone who's wired with depression, and exercise is a crucial part of maintaining good mental health. So I really needed that bladder working. Did the surgery on the table, my heart stopped and I coded numerous times. And it was that meridian of time for my life before and after. And is what happened is I went in with a known autoimmune disease, celiac disease, and they put titanium in my body to hold the cadaver graft of the bladder sling. And at the time, they thought titanium was inert, but it's not. We know now, science knows now, that some people have a reaction to titanium, and I did. So that was one part of the problem. The second part of the problem is we were in Arizona, incredible growth. They could not keep up with the growth. You drive by a vacant lot and there would be a new grocery store and restaurants, and just seemed like it would just spring up over the weekend. So incredible growth in the area. And they had purchased, the cadaver graft had been purchased off market and it had mold on it. So the combination of my autoimmune, my reaction to the titanium, and the mold just tanked my system. And it took us 3.5 years to figure out what was happening. And so in the process of that time, I was in a wheelchair, having daily seizures, being fed through tubes, catheter, the whole bit. In that 3.5 years, got down to about 70 pounds.
Wow.
And my husband had to take a leave of absence because I was non-functional for these young children in our home that needed a mom.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, there's just so much in this story that I think if you parse apart and just, it's like these little steps that led to that exact experience. And I'm curious for you being, pretty well on the other side of, but how does an experience like that, then the 3.5 years, but how does that experience change you? And was that something you were conscious of as it was happening, or it's like now you can talk about in retrospect?
Um, yes and no. Some things after they took the titanium out, my thinking got better
Mhm.
and I recognized some things that were really broken. During that 3.5 years, I was very insulated from the trauma
Mhm.
because I was so out of it. I did not realize the depth of trauma that my family was experiencing with that because I was so sick. And so some of the things I recognized in the moment, oh, this is not working for me anymore. So for example, one of the things was I found my worth from what I did.
Mm.
I was a doer and I wanted my worth. I wanted to be a high value person, right?
Mhm.
And so I did a lot of things when my body was too tired, when I should have been sleeping, and when I should have been focused on other things. I was out there finding my worth from doing things. Well, 3.5 years, I'm on the couch, not doing anything for anyone, not even myself. And so I had to really reevaluate, do I have worth without doing? So that was a huge one for me. That was a major change in the energy of everything that I did.
Wow, I mean, that rewires your whole life. I think
Mm.
a lot of people can relate to being in that doing space, and, like, for myself, leaving Morgan Stanley, this is almost this ego death of this 7-year career that I built everything that I am up to be able to say, "This is me," and then it's like, "Oh, what? Who am I?" And I'm hearing a similar experience, although expressed quite differently. For you also in that, like the role of healthcare advocate, were you conscious, like when you're saying like, this isn't working for me, is that like an intuitive ping that you're like, this isn't working for me? Or is that coming through different doctors? Like, how were you able to advocate for yourself? Were you even able to, or was that coming through, say, your husband or other, your sisters you mentioned?
During that 3.5 years, my husband was my advocate. I wasn't even at the point
Wow.
where I could do that. When I started putting the pieces back together after
Mhm,
they took the titanium out, I definitely got better, but I was a mess.
mhm,
And that's when I really started recognizing what I've been doing the first part of my life is not working. And one of the things I had to recognize is that I was laying all the responsibility on the doctor, the chiropractor, the whomever I was seeing. I was laying the responsibility and accountability on their shoulders to get me better. And I
mhm.
realized I needed to take accountability, that I wasn't making healthy choices. I wasn't living healthy patterns. And that's when I really started focusing on my beliefs and my patterns. And that really started making a difference for me.
I love that you say that, and for me, that moment, I remember thinking like, "Oh my gosh, like, my life is habits and patterns." And I like it took, this was a while ago now, and I just remember that was, like, my first big aha, and it was, like, took me to my knees for some reason because it was so simple and yet it's, like, so profound, and it's like, "Now what?" And it's like, eventually, I think you get to now let's make new habits and patterns, but there's a gap, and what was that gap like for you? Was there, like you said, depression that was popping up, or were you able to maybe forgive yourself? What did that going from, "Oh, whoa, this is what got me here and now I need new ones." What was that like for you?
I was just chasing symptoms and I was
Mhm,
exhausted. And financially, we were devastated from what had happened. We were okay for my husband to take that leave of absence for a year.
mhm,
And then after that, we weren't okay financially. And so I didn't have the ability to chase symptoms anymore because we
mhm,
didn't have the money to do that. And so it was very overwhelming at the time, because if you're already overwhelmed and then you need to take more accountability for your health, that's dissonance. Like
mhm.
that doesn't work. If you're overwhelmed, you're just adding to your overwhelm. And I had to learn overwhelm is not an emotion. It's the
Mm.
consequence of lack of action. And so learning that and literally rewiring how my brain viewed overwhelm. I thought I was living if you had an emotion, that was your experience. I didn't understand how to observe emotions and be comfortable with the emotion, but not act on the emotion. And then I was confusing overwhelm with an emotion, which it's not.
Power
It's comfort.
powerful. Yeah. This, this feedback loop, this is feels so resonant, and this is something I've been sitting with a lot. We're in a time right now that words can't even express the time that we're in right now. I feel that on so many levels and for so many reasons.
I'm
It,
calling it the great divide. I
yeah.
am seeing such a divide in people creating health or not creating health.
Mhm.
And some people are doing a lot of things that they think they're creating health, but in actuality, they're not creating health. And I want to be in that group of people that is living and experiencing optimal health.
And I I think this lack of action, we're in the perfect expression of the individual feedback loops on the correct collective level. And so much of that is overwhelm. And I think that if you're in fight or flight and then you want to like take the reins, like that's the dissonance that you're talking about.
Right.
And I think from a financial lens, and I have this background in finance, I would see this a lot where it's like you're already in fight or flight financially, and that's like with you all the time. And there's so much shame and there's so much guilt about it, and there's so much overwhelm. And it's like, how do you begin to, like, what's that first step that you can get out of overwhelm and now take that ownership? And I guess the answer is the action, and each person has to know their action. But like, what was your first step, if you can remember, that took you from
Well,
overwhelmed to action?
I do. I had to change my belief because my belief was my value was determined by my action. And I
Mm.
had to change my belief to I have value whether I accomplish anything today. I can lay on a couch with my eyes closed and I still have incredible value. My value does not change with what I do. And it was changing that belief that helped walk me toward action. And now I am very conscious of my action. So, for example, a lot of times we'll scroll. Have you ever been on Facebook or Instagram and looked up and gone, oh my gosh, an hour or 10 minutes or, 20 minutes has gone by? No action has been taken in that time that will walk you toward health. Even though you might have heard tidbits about health, you might have seen recipes made about health, you maybe saw an exercise that someone did that they said, oh, in 3 minutes you can do this, and you get that dopamine hit, and you get that dopamine hit, and you feel so good because you're seeing and being a part of what could create health. But in actuality, that dopamine hit is lying to you because you haven't done anything in that 20 minutes or 60 minutes to actually create health. And so if I'm on social media and I see something that I think that has value, I stop. No more new information is taken in until
Mhm.
I have created action on what I learned and
Wow.
done the exercise, made the recipe, or whatever it is.
Schedule the time to make the recipe, or yeah. I'm
Yeah,
hearing a lot of integrity to just the way you operate with life, like your moments. And I'm always like, we get 86,400 seconds. Like, how do you want to live with those?
right.
You get to choose, right?
And I think it's so easy to just assume tomorrow's will be here
Mhm.
and that we know what they'll be like. My husband is a recent double amputee, and our moments are very different than what we thought they would
Mhm.
be. And so being in the moment that I'm in right now is incredibly important to me because of the loss of moments.
Mhm. Well, I'm honored to be in this moment with you. And
Oh,
I cherish, I look around when I can remember and I'm like, man, like you and I are in this choice right now to be in this moment. And like, this is all that exists. It's just a kind of like overwhelming beauty when I let that resonate.
yeah.
Um, so from this 3.5 years of healing and continued, right? We're like maybe always healing, or I heard that recently someone said it's not healing, it's holing.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I really like that. But so in your holing process, when did you start living the good life naturally, and how did that become an expression as part of your health journey?
So I never intended to start a business ever. I mean, that wasn't on my goal before, and it wasn't my goal after.
Mhm.
People started, as I started putting the pieces of my life back together, and I was incredibly motivated because once they took that titanium out, my awareness increased
Wow.
and I saw the trauma of my children. And so that trauma absolutely was my fuel to take as much action as possible to put my health back together because I recognized that trauma was driven by me, their
Mhm.
mom. And so in putting those pieces back together, I people would come to me and say, "My gosh, you used to be having seizures in public, and we could tell you didn't have any bladder control because when you have a seizure, you lose all bladder control. And you used to have tubes in you, and now we see you and you're out running." And so people started just coming to me and asking questions, and I'd say, "Oh, no, no, no. If you skip this and this, you'll get to the end goal faster." I'm
Mhm.
a huge proponent of minimum input for maximum output.
Mhm.
And I want minimum, think of 100 energy points a day, and you have that 100 energy points. I do not want 90 of my energy points focused on creating health. I'm creating health to live a great, big, beautiful, deeply connected life with people that I love. And so that's where I want my energy points focused on. And so as people started asking me questions like, well, what did you do here? Oh, focus on this. That will get you to this faster. And it felt really good, right? Remember, because I was someone that found value in doing. And
Mhm.
so all of a sudden, my values started to increase again. It's like, oh, okay, I have value. People are asking me questions. My value is back. And that's when I realized that ego was slipping back in because my value was increasing with their questions. And then that's when my husband came to me and said, I love the fact that you are interacting with people and you've got the energy to do this, but we need you. And he said something that just changed everything for me. And he said, when you say yes to them, you have said no to us, and we miss you and we need you. And so from there, living the good life naturally was born because I realized if I'm saying yes to them, they have to value the time that I'm saying no to my family. And so I
Mhm.
started charging for that time. And then that's the whole company was created from that moment of insight from him.
Wow, it's powerful. I think that there are trade-offs, right? And there's trade-offs always in all that we do. And I love how you were able to make that value connection though to yourself delivering that value. Maybe there was this ego validation piece. I hear
Oh,
this,
absolutely.
right?
It
It's
was
like,
for me.
and it can be addicting. And
It
then
felt good.
yeah, and what a I think sometimes I think there's like a natural like the amount of the feel good, it may be in this like dopamine scale, right? Like this natural, like obviously that's that, but like when does it go too far? And I think we get this like dopamine priming through social media that it's almost infinite now of how good you can feel. And why not pull the matrix in right now? But it's like watching. that watching social media be the matrix, and I don't there's not judgment in saying that. It's just that only each of us can say, like, at the cost of what else, and be able to answer that question. And
I
uh
can't call it for you, and you
mhm.
cannot call it for me.
And guess who else is not going to call it for either of us, is, like, say, Facebook, right? Like, oh, good, like, they have their business model, they're doing their thing, whatever. It's judgment free zone. But yeah, I to encourage everyone to take a look at, what am I saying yes and no to, and just have an inventory check. It changes all the time. That's the beauty of life.
Mm.
So I got the privilege of, in me meeting you, to get to do a 30-day magnesium soak and foot soak. And I want to just explain my experience for a second, if you
Oh,
will. But
yeah.
I was having major migraines up to this moment, and I get to do 30-day foot soak. And for me, this is feeling so luxurious to have 30 minutes a day to be with myself. I'm a meditator. So it was like on top of, like, whoa, I get to meditate. And then, oh, I can meditate during. I mean, it was this whole thing. And I haven't had migraines. Yeah, and there's lots of things I would also say that have happened in, like, the 6 months since that. I think on top of all this, it's been feeling like an energetic, just, like, kinda upgrading. But something changed for me with the magnesium, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, and maybe directly to my experience as then an inspiration for others. But get yourself the magnesium. I know you have other offerings as well, but this was profound. And it was coming to me intuitively during this time, like, you need more magnesium, like, I knew. And then it was like, of course, zero accident that I'm connected to you. So what the heck happened?
So magnesium, okay, so first of all, chasing. I chased hormone problems, I chased thyroid problems, I chased weight problems, I chased energy problems, I chased gut problems. And that's a lot of expended energy, a lot of wasted money, and a lot of wasted time. And so, one of my beliefs that was crushed was that I don't chase symptoms. Okay, so if I don't do that, what do I do? And the belief that was born was I build a strong foundation. That's what I
Mm,
do. Now, sometimes when you're building that strong foundation, lots of things clear up, and then you don't have to chase anything. Sometimes you still have some things left over that have to specifically be worked on. But my goal for my body was a strong physical foundation. And it all starts with magnesium. And you talked a little bit earlier about, the year that we're in, and we're currently recording this in 21. And I think all of us more than ever understand the role that vitamin D plays in our bodies for a strong immune. And I think collectively, we all hold that desire at a different level to have a strong immune system. That vitamin D strengthens our immune system. So we could chase symptoms, and we could chase vitamin D, and we could supplement with synthetic vitamin D, but go back to my new belief of I build a strong foundation. I do not chase symptoms. What does vitamin D need? You don't get low vitamin D without magnesium dropping first.
mm,
And so to build that strong foundation, you need magnesium. You cannot get low vitamin D without your magnesium dropping. And so getting that magnesium in a way that will activate your vitamin D and take you from your stored vitamin D to your active vitamin D,
mm,
because that's where that piece is missing, that we need to understand vitamin D at a deeper level. It's not just one test. We have an active vitamin D and a stored vitamin D. And the way that you move your stored into the active where you're using it, magnesium is the spark plug that does that. but not magnesium you take in through your mouth. You can't get enough. You would have incredible stomach distress and bowel problems if you took that much magnesium. And that's where soaking comes into play. We're bypassing digestion. We're using that largest organ that we have, our skin, and we're upgrading our magnesium through our skin to get to cell saturation so that we have enough magnesium to activate that vitamin D.
Beautifully said. Oh my goodness. And we're down here. I live in South Florida, and I've been, I would say, having a new, deeper relationship with the sun lately, and also with like DNA and water. And so I go into the ocean and I soak for a couple minutes, and I'm like communing with sun and source and God and all the things and my DNA. And this has been also this quite like profound healing experience almost daily to do this. But, you know, the sun without magnesium may not be giving me the benefits that you're mentioning here. My stores might be great, but like what's going on with this? And
Your
uh
body activate it.
and I'm I this can get a little far out there, so bear with me, everyone. But our DNA and the sun have a really tight relationship if we let
Oh,
them.
it's not far out there at all. I can
Yeah.
show you all the science from head to
And
head
so we got
that
the
actually
science on,
supports
but
that.
I mean, I feel this on such a like, oh my God, intuitive, getting the chills right now level. And I am like, we barely begin to really understand the DNA. You track back to what the actual like birth of DNA, it's like a nature study from the 60s, and the guy's wife had a psychedelic experience and pictured the double helix. And like, that's how the double helix is born. So I think that water, ether, sun connection may be just at the very beginning of being understood, if even that. And like kind of the only thing I think we know is that we need magnesium to let ourselves access this. And all I can think of is life force energy, like, and like, let's unleash the life force energy. When we look at what's happening on a collective level, how many people have access to their vitamin D? I'd love a percentage on this. I don't think it would be quite high, and you'd probably know better than me. But uh, like you touched on earlier, the level of awareness opening, I think we start to digest. Oh man, like I do have a personal responsibility to do this for myself, because that becomes part of the collective. And when we turn this on, what are we doing? What happens? I can only
You're creating a
imagine.
wave in the cell. So think of the waves. I'm in California and I walk the ocean every morning, and those beautiful waves come crashing in. The moon determines the movement of that water. So when we walk in that early morning sunlight, there are colors that we only get in the morning that increase our melatonin. So our morning exposure to light actually increases our ability to sleep that night. It's
Hmm.
determined how much melatonin our body can produce by those early morning rays of the sun. And then when you get that early morning ray of the sun and the evening ray of the sun, you're creating a wave in your cell.
Mm.
But you have to have magnesium to convert it to all the beautiful things at the cellular level that can happen. And so I tell people sunrise, magnesium, sunset. That's where we start.
Cool.
Sunrise, magnesium, sunset. And that will do more to rebalance hormones, to boost thyroid production, to help you balance cortisol that's walking you away from hormone balance, and it will activate your DNA.
I think this is a good moment to make this connection to the new beliefs you keep bringing up, and how powerful that was. Like the new belief of the foundation, like you're setting your foundation. And this idea too, idea, quote unquote, or truth of your immune system. Uh, I'm curious, in these beliefs, like for someone that may have other beliefs about how the body works,
Mhm,
what are these first steps to my, like, let's take for example, like my body's innate status health.
mhm.
how do you go from, maybe it's through a health experience, but maybe not. Like, what are some of these first, it's just like tracking the beliefs. What are some of these first steps? Or do you have to just obliterate the old ones?
I was lucky, and if if you would have told me 20 years ago that I would call it lucky what happened, I would not have been able to comprehend that. My beliefs were obliterated,
Mm,
and I got to replace them with what I chose was a power with my choosing of a powerful belief. So I think it can happen both ways. And I think there are pros and cons to both ways
mhm,
in that I got to have that obliteration blow up happen and I replaced those beliefs. Some people replace them one at a time. So
mhm,
I see journeys of, as I've had the privilege of working with thousands of women over the last 20 years, both pathways get you to that end destination.
mhm,
For me, it was a total obliteration of every belief that I had, and I had to rethink, restructure, ask myself, is do I believe that? Or is that just something that's I've been running unconsciously for a long time? And so really being connected to those and consciously aware of my actions and what belief is driving that action.
mm. Is that,
So
is that a daily process for you?
it's always happening throughout the day
Cool.
process. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's breathing. It's as I breathe, and one of the things it did for me is it's helped me drop my judgment of other
Mhm.
people. I'm a much more enjoyable person to be around because I'm so busy focused on that inner dialogue. I don't have time to judge you or have this experience with you that I'm putting you in a box because I'm deeply connected to my own experience. And so it's helped me become a much less judgmental person.
I love the honesty. I think that when you're stuck in that judgment loop, it can feel overwhelming to get out of. And something that's helped me is to just be like, what part of myself am I hating on that I need to judge this person,
Right,
and
right,
like clears it up real quick.
right. My
Uh,
dad was really into cars. They were very important to him. And I didn't recognize it, but I judge people for the car they drove. I put you in a box. The kind of car
wow.
you drove determined your value. I didn't
Mhm.
ever choose to do that. I picked up on it though, and I did do that. And so being more aware of my own experience helped me really walk away from putting other people and it's so easy. We can do it with the houses people live in.
Mhm.
Their value is, your value more because of your home? No, but we can buy into that. We can do it with the computers. Are you an Android or an Apple person? Put
Mhm.
people in those camps and, okay, you fit over here and you're in this box over here. The shoes people wear, the clothes they wear, the jewelry, so many different ways. For myself, as I evaluate those beliefs, it's helped me to just become so much less judgmental. And in that process, I burn through less magnesium because we are
Wow.
so powerful. We are so incredibly powerful that our thoughts determine how fast we burn through magnesium. So one of my goals is that everyone understands the power that they have to slow down their personal magnesium burn rate. And when you're a bitter, angry, judgmental person, you have a higher magnesium burn rate. So therefore, you'll soak in the magnesium and your body will utilize it faster. And so learning how to slow down how much magnesium we need is a part of my journey to help people.
Powerful. Wow. I mean, and to connect that to like the energetic frequencies, you see these different scales. I mean, it feels perfectly in line. And then you see the actual data to represent that. So going off the beliefs a little and you building the belief of the foundation, what I see, and you said something like the chasing the symptoms. And I
Mm,
think this is so common, and a distinction that you made that I found even interesting was like you were doing a lot of the holistic stuff, right? I was going to the chiropractor, this, and it's still the chasing of the
Oh,
symptoms.
yeah, it's still
And
chasing.
yeah, and I think that that piece is this sticky, really sticky in like the natural health alternative medicine community, because it feels so different, but yet it still feels so the same.
Mhm.
And that distinction of chasing the symptoms to I create my foundation of my health. um I feel like this is worth spending a couple minutes on, because to me, there's this connection to chaos and like our addiction to the chaos, parallel to chasing the symptoms. It's like this belief that there always has to be something wrong. And perhaps there's a connection to the trauma and like the lack of safety. And so then it's the belief is like something's always wrong. And now I'm searching for that via symptoms. Uh, this feels important. So I just want to spend a moment here,
Oh,
whether
let's.
this is for yourself. I mean, it feels like a nail on a head.
So one of my experiences with my husband and his double amputation really ties into this.
Mhm.
And that is, we all have something right now in our body that we have not expressed gratitude for that's working beautifully. And if we are constantly chasing to get more help, to get more health, but we haven't acknowledged what's working now, it doesn't matter where you get with your health, you will stay in that habit
Wow.
of always looking. And my husband was such an example of this in because it was trauma to lose those legs and how he handled it and managed it. And he said, I can't control that the size of the veins that I was born with were incorrect and do not give my lower legs enough blood. He cannot change that. He said, but I can determine the gratitude I have for other parts of my body.
Wow.
And to see him go to the level that he did of gratitude. And so I did a little challenge with women that I worked with, and we all just stopped. And I said, just for 21 days, I don't want you to add anything new. I don't want you, just stop and experience the health that you have right now.
Mm.
All of them. It increased their happiness, it increased their connection, it increased their joy, and it increased their health just by acknowledging the health that they had now. And it's so easy to be caught up in now this. Okay, I'm doing this. But you'll always be caught up in that. And the same thing, you can go back to money because the patterns that hold you back from health, you're playing those same patterns in how you manage and handle the energy of money. And
Mhm.
so I used to remember in the business, I think, okay, when we bring in 10,000, everything's going to be so easy. 10,000, 10,000. Well, guess what? When we got to 10,000, there was just problems. There was more problems. And I had to, a new devil at every level. And there was
Get
new
now you
day.
have to get to 100,000 to make the problems go away.
Right, right. And then you have to do this and then you have to do that. And so it's stopping and and actively creating gratitude. Anyone can do a gratitude list where
Mhm.
they just write out all those things. Like I'm grateful for my eyes and my ears and the fact I can smell and my digestion and my eyelashes. I mean, anyone can make a gratitude list. That's not what gets you off the hamster wheel of searching and questing and never enough. Is what gets you off is actively creating internal gratitude for those things. And so I like to tell people, think of Christmas morning.
Mm.
You're so excited on the inside, and that's active gratitude. And that's the experience that we need to create over eyesight, over a tongue that moves and helps you swallow, over teeth that help you chew, over arteries that move blood and nutrients to different parts of your body. I mean, there's so many things that you can create gratitude for. And in doing that, you go to flow state of creating health versus chasing. And it's a much more feminine energy to be in. And when you're in that energy, you bring things to you. You don't chase. Women shouldn't be chasing. If you're chasing, you're not in that powerful feminine energy. It's when you attract things to you that you're standing in that powerful feminine.
Oh, gosh, it's too good. Thank you so much, Kristen. I really feel this landing on so many levels. And as you were talking about the gratitude, it made me think of the magnesium again, about how it's like almost that is what the magnesium is. It's like unlocking everything you have within you already, to be
It
able to,
activates.
yeah,
It literally activates. And when you go to older studies, they'll say, oh, 300 different things that it activates.
Mhm.
And then I think about 5 or 7 years later, they moved the number to it's 700 things that it
Wow.
activates. And now it's up to 1,300 things that it activates, that you can have all of the things that your body needs. But if you're deficient in magnesium, they won't be activated. Your mitochondria need magnesium for 56 different processes. And the longer I am focused on health and helping people tap into their best health, I realize it's all about mitochondria function. And the more that we can focus on mitochondria function, the healthier we get with ease and grace. And so that magnesium is needed at the mitochondrial level.
I have
56 different things.
yeah, I mean, it's just start with the magnesium, everyone. I think that's a takeaway here.
Yeah.
How would you
Sunrise, magnesium, sunset.
yeah, the connection with the magnesium and the processes to the glandular system. Do you have any thoughts or comments? It's sort of a random question, but I've been getting a lot of what feels like giving attention to the glands
Mhm.
messages, and
Yeah.
what role does magnesium play, if any, to that?
Magnesium is everything to those glands. And think of they've got the glands, and think of the engine to the glands.
Mhm.
They're not going to start without magnesium. They're not going to be powered without the action. Magnesium is an action mineral,
Mhm.
and it activates and moves glandular function in your body. So those glands aren't doing what they don't have the gas or the spark plug to move to the next process that needs to happen. And they'll cover for each other. They're very connected. And so, for example, your pancreas will cover if your tonsils have been taken out. Your pancreas will try to cover and act as a filter, because your tonsils are a filter for your pancreas from virus and bacteria. And so, pancreas will step in and try to become what the tonsils were. And so, if you're not giving them that action mineral, they're trying to cover for each other and do roles that they were not intended to cover, and they get more burned out and worn out, and they get more bent proteins. And we all know a bent protein walks you away from your own individual DNA. And so we've got to make sure that they're getting the magnesium, that they can operate in the role and function that they were meant to operate in, instead of trying to pick up the slack for
Mm.
other glands.
I find this quite ironic. You said overwhelm is the lack of action,
Mhm.
and how it's like magnesium is the action, or allows them the action, and just finding some interesting parallels in this
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with today, and certainly the best way they can find you and connect? I know we have a special discount we'll have in the show notes. If you do want to take some magnesium, I know that I'm adding this to the family Christmas list for everyone, so but I'll turn it over to you.
So I think the most important thing that I want people to walk away with is just to have a desire to step into that flow of creating health. And you do that by creating a wave in your cells. And that's done with sunrise, soaking in magnesium, and sunset. And by setting that strong circadian rhythm and having the action mineral in the middle of that, that will start more processes happening in your body to get you in that flow of creating health. And it helps put you back in a natural state with the light in the morning, the light in the evening, and then soaking in that magnesium sometime during the day.
Beautiful. Thank you so, so much. Have a great day, and we'll see everyone next week. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Leela Life Show. Be sure to share, like, and comment. Tune in next week. And if you're not already a member of the Leela Life Collective, you'll want to be. So take a look in the show notes and be sure you sign up today. Have a beautiful day.